Okay, so this is the OSI 7 layer. So we have the 7 layers here. So basically we have the topmost layer, which is the application. So that's layer 7. So for layer 6, that's presentation. On layer 5, we have session. On layer 4, we have transport. On layer 3, we have network. On layer 2, we have data link. And on layer 1, we have physical. So that's the 7 layer: application, presentation, session, transport, network, data link, and physical. So always remember that every time you use a network resource, so you let's say for example, you are accessing a website, you are accessing a web page on a web server. So basically, you are accessing a service. Okay, so for network transmission always uses the 7 layers. So this is the breakdown how your data travels over the network. So from the topmost layer, which is the application, going down to the physical layer. So what are the things that works on this application? So I'll be discussing the simple description of the application of the 7 layers. Of the 7 layers, then I'll be discussing later the detailed description of those 7 layers in terms of how your data are being passed through different layers. Okay. So let's start first with the application. So for the application, so ulit ko lang that always remember that when you are accessing a network or using a network transmission, so basically you are always requesting a service. Okay. So on the application layer, so we were going to on the application layer, one good example of this one is something that a user interacts with. Okay, let's say for example, if you're checking a browser, so what is the part of your computer which interacts with the user? Okay, so an example on the application layer is the browser. Okay, so the user interacts with the browser for him to access a website. Okay, one example is a browser which works under the application layer. Okay, so when you have a request over your browser, so your data will now be converted into a binary format, or a series of one zeros, or a huge number of bits. Okay, so basically everything should be converted into binary because that is the machine understandable language. Okay, so from the browser, it will now be from the browser or the application layer, it will go down to the presentation layer. So there should be something that would convert your request to a digital format or a binary format. Okay, so on your presentation layer, so from your data being requested, so it will go down to the presentation. So one good example of something that works on the presentation layer is your operating system. Okay, all of your requests from the browser will be converted to a 101010, and that is done by the operating system. Okay, so basically you have the request on the browser, and that is on the application layer. Okay, so the browser forwards those information to the operating systems, and the operating system is the one responsible for converting those services to a binary information. Okay, so you now have your data ready for transmission. Okay, so from the application going to the presentation layer, so it will now go down to the session layer. Okay, so from the word itself, session is the one responsible for establishing what? The session layer is the one responsible for establishing what? From the word itself, session. Anyone?
Connection.
Okay, so that's correct. So basically, the session layer is the one responsible for checking connectivity on the destination. So basically, it will check, meron bang session or meron bang connectivity? Is there a connectivity between the sender and the destination? Okay? It will check for the connectivity. Okay? So that's why, di ba, when you are browsing websites, merong sa baba na status na parang checking connectivity or something like that. So basically, that is the session layer. So it creates connectivity from the sender to the destination address. Okay? So that is the purpose of the session layer. So it establishes connectivity over the network. Okay? So that is the session layer. So that is the fifth layer. So let's go down to the transport layer. Okay? So transport layer, so it is the one responsible for the reliability. The reliability of network and how data will be transmitted over the network. Okay? So that is the transport layer. Okay? So it checks for the reliability and how the data will be transmitted over the network. Okay? So that is the reliability. Now, you have the connectivity and reliability. So it's about time to send. So sa network naman, so the device that works on the network is the router. Okay? So the router is an example of something that works on the network layer. Okay? So next is we have the data link. If you have the router going down to the second layer, so from the router, this will now be on the data link layer. So an example of the device that works on the data link layer is what we call as an example. If you have the router on the network layer, ano naman sa data link? This is also a device.
Format.
We have the router here. Okay? Diba? Your data is already prepared here. There's a connectivity. There's a reliability. Okay? It will now transfer to the router. So the router transfer your data to the data link layer, which is
Server, sir.
Ano ba? What are other network device? A switch.
Switch.
Okay. Okay, an example of something that works on the data link layer is a switch. Okay? So since dumaan na siya sa switch, so this time it will go to the last layer which is the physical layer. Okay? So physical layer, so it means eto na lahat in terms of converting all those binary digits into electrical signals, electronic signals, okay? Or the 1010 or the square waves, okay? So, ulitin ko na. So, from the switch, all your data will now be converted into electrical signals, okay? So, kasi di ba pagdating sa physical layer, kaya siya tinawag na physical layer, it refers to converting those data to electrical signals. Okay? Your data will now be in a form of electrical signals. So, saan ba dumadaan itong mga to? So, what are example of the physical of devices or part of the network which falls under physical layer?
Fast Ethernet, please.
Fast Ethernet, okay? So, preferably this is the Ethernet. Okay? So, that is how your data travels over the network. Okay? And that is a simplified discussion on how the OSI 7 layer works. But, yung next discussion ko is the detailed description of how your data looks like over the network. Okay, ulitin ko na yan. These are brief description or devices which works on a particular layer. Okay? On my next discussion, so this is how your data looks like when it travels over the network, over the OSI 7 layer. Okay? So, always remember, kung mapapansin nyo, the application, presentation, and session is the one responsible for converting all of your requests into binary data. Okay? So basically, those three uppermost most layer is the one responsible for converting it into your data. So sa tatlong layer na to, pine-prepare niya yung tinatawag na PDU, or what we call as the protocol data unit. Diba doon sa Cisco Packet Tracer nyo, I've asked you to add a simple PDU or the protocol data unit. Okay? So, yung PDU na yon is your data. So, these are your data. Okay? So, ngayon, on a detailed description of the 7 layer, so, from the uppermost layer, 7, 6, and 5th layer, so, bababa siya on the transport layer. Okay, bababa siya sa transport layer. So, how do your data looks like on the transport layer? For example, if you have a huge amount of data na puro 1010 or your protocol data unit, how does your data looks like on the transport layer? Okay? Always remember that when you are using a network facility, so every time, for example, every time you browse a website, you always ask for a service. Okay? Always ask for a service. Okay? Always remember that for a particular service, there will always be what we call as the protocol. Okay? So we always have a protocol. Okay? So if this is your data, how do the destination know what service you are requesting? Okay, ulitin ko na ya. You have a huge amount of data here. But how do your destination computer will be able to know what service you are requesting? Paano niya malalaman kung ito ay by FTP, HTTP, POP3, SMTP, or different protocols over the network? So how do the destination computer would know what service you are requesting? So, yun yung trabaho ng transport layer. The transport layer is the one responsible for identifying the service that a particular computer is requesting. Okay? So, for every protocol, for every service, there's a corresponding protocol. For every protocol, there's corresponding port number. Okay? Or the port number. Okay? So, your data should be defined with its service. So, kung may service ka that is equivalent to a protocol, for each protocol, there's a corresponding port number. Okay? Ano ba yung port number na tinatawag? Okay. Sa internet, there is... Susulat pa. Okay? Sa internet, we have 1 to 65,535 ports. Okay? Ulitin ko na ya. For every service, there is a protocol. For every protocol, there is a port. Okay? So, sa internet, halimbawang kinonect nyo yung computer nyo sa internet at wala kayong firewall, this is how many ports ang open sa computer mo. That's 65,535 ports over the internet. Meaning to say, there will always be so many entries. So, maraming papasukan yung virus or attack on your computer because everything is open. Okay? That's 1 to 65,535. Okay? So, always remember that on the transport layer, dito nilalagay, aside from your PDU, dito nyo nilalagay yung port number. So, the port number defines the protocol or defines the service. Okay? Example, if you are accessing HTTP, what is the port number for HTTP? Nakakalam ba? Sino nakakalam? Port number.
80 po, sir.
Port HTTP
80.
is
80 po.
equivalent to
80 po.
port 80. Okay? So, if you're accessing HTTP, you are accessing an HTTP service or an HTTP protocol, and that HTTP uses port 80 on your internet ports. Okay? So, meaning to say, dumadaan siya on port 80 dun sa 1 to 65,535 ports on your internet or connection. Okay? So, ganun kadami kasi siya. If you don't have the firewall, all of those are open on your computer. So, that's why it is vulnerable to attack if you don't turn on your firewall. Okay? So, yun yung magiging concern nyo if the 65,535 ports are open. There are so many services, there are so many ports that an attack or virus can enter on your computer. Okay? So, on the transport layer, it defines the service that you are requesting. So, pagdating sa transport layer, yung data mo will have the source port, the source port number. Siyempre, kung meron kang source port, halimbawa, you are the sender, you are using port 80. Siyempre, meron ka rin destination port. Okay? This is port 80. This is also port 80. If you are requesting HTTP, so you are requesting a service on a source port 80 and on the destination port 80. Okay? So, meaning to say your PDU, nilalagyan siya ng source port or the destination and the destination port. Okay? And by the way, on the transport layer, di ba, you have your data here. It's a huge amount of data or your protocol data unit. Masyadong malaki siya. But in reality, when it is being transferred on the transport layer, this will now be divided into segments. So, dinidivide siya sa segments. So, meaning to say, pinapaliit nyo yung data, hinahati-hati nyo yung data before it transmit to the network. Okay? So, pinapalit nila, hinahati-hati yung data pag sinesend siya over the network. Ano sa tingin niyo yung purpose ng making the data into smaller pieces? Ano kaya purpose nun?
Para mas mabilis po siya ma-transfer.
Okay? The
Mas
first one
mabilis
is...
po.
The first one is... So, that is correct. So, the first reason for making it into segments or smaller pieces is for speed of delivery. Okay? Kasi mas maliit siya, mas madali siyang i-transfer. Okay? Mas madali siyang i-transmit. Okay? So, that is the first one. So, what do you think are the other reason for segmenting data on the transport layer? Ano sa tingin niya?
To avoid network traffic.
Avoid network traffic. So, part of those, that is speed of transmission. Okay? Halimbawa, if the PDU is divided into 3 portions here, or 3 segments, okay, and 3 segments, aside from speeding up the transmission, so another purpose is, if I'm going to get this one, this portion, do I get the entire data?
No po.
Sir, paulit po ng tanong, sir.
Ulitin ko na. The first reason why on the transport layer it is segmented or making it into smaller pieces is for speeding up transmission. Okay? The second reason is for example, if the data is being divided into 3 portions, if I'm going to get this portion, did I get the entire data?
Hindi po.
Nakuha ka ba yung mong data?
Hindi po.
Hindi. Okay? So, the second reason is for what?
Security.
Okay, security. So, that's correct. Okay? So, the first reason is to speed up delivery of or transmission. The second one is for security purpose. Okay? So, if you're going to get a portion of the segment, you are not going to get the entire data or the entire protocol data unit. Okay? So, sa transport, ang data mo dito is what we call as segment. Okay? So, basically, the segment do have the segment header. Okay? Yung segment mo nilalagyan ng header, segment header. Yung segment header na to is the source port and the destination port. Okay? So, another reason is, di ba, the first reason is to speed up transmission. The second reason is to secure networks or secure data. The third reason is what we call as
Reduce cost po.
Ano na?
Reduce yung cost po yung data.
Reduce yung cost. Okay? Another reason for segmenting data or making it smaller pieces is for multiplexing. Yung tinatawag na multiplexing is making different forms of data to travel over a single transmission medium. Okay? So, meaning to say nung multiplexing is that you are combining different forms of data on transmission. Kasi for example, yung sinasabing multiplexing is different forms, combining different forms of data. So, pwede siyang video, audio, or pure data na nagta-travel over the network. Okay? So, kung masyado kasi malalaki siya, so basically, baka may hirapan mag-transfer ng different information. Okay? So, kaya siya sinesegment, especially for video, kasi di ba video, yun yung medyo malaki-laking kumakain on the bandwidth on your network. So, basically, kung masyado siya malaki, so basically, you don't have enough space para i-transfer naman yung other form of data. Remember, this is network data transmission. It's not only a single transmission that you are dealing with over the network. Hindi naman to isang transmission lang di ba? So, halimbawa, if you have 1,000 computers on the network, so gaano bang kadami yung data na nagto-travel over the network? Hindi pa pwedeng tatapusin niya muna yung isa, then tsaka nyo isa-send. Okay, what will happen there is magkakaroon ka ng congestion, okay? Or there's a delay of transmission. Kasi imagine nyo, if the video will be sent over first, over the network, ng isang buuan, tatapusin nyo muna yung video bago niya isend yung napakaliit na data lang. Okay? So, pwede naman yung isingit yon on segments if you're going to divide the video into smaller segments. Okay? Hanggang siya mabuo siya on the destination. Kasi ang ginagawa lang naman, for example, if you are accessing YouTube videos, so basically you are not getting the entire video. You are getting segments of that video para pagdating do sa destination, bubuuin na lang siya. Okay? Para in between the transmission, meron ka pa nasisingit ng other forms of data. Okay? Whether it's an audio, it's a data, or a plain data, so pwede siyang pumasok doon. Okay? Or voice. So basically, yun yung function of segmenting the data or the PDU on the transport layer, to segment it and make it in smaller pieces to simplify, to speed up transmission, security of transmission, and multiplexing. Or multiplexing is a combination of different forms of data over a single transmission. Okay? So that is the purpose of that one, of the transport layer. Okay, let's go to the, where's my pointer? Okay, let's go to the network layer. Okay? So, on the transport layer, you already define what is the service being requested. Okay? Ulitin ko na, you have your data. It is on segment. Alam na, because of the segment header, we have the source port and destination port. The destination identifies which service you are requesting. Which service you are requesting. Okay? So, pagdating sa network layer, so ano mangyayari? Anong kulang? So you have the data, you know the service. So kaya lang hindi mo alam kung saan siya ipapadala. Okay? So you don't know kung saan siya papadala. Okay? Pagdating sa network layer, your segment will now be added by a particular header again. Okay, dito ko na ya. On the transport layer, we have segments here. And on each segment, we have the segment header, which is composed of the source port and destination port. Pagdating sa network layer, meron na naman idadagdag na header. Okay, what do you think is the header being added here? Okay, you know the service. Ngayon, paano malalaman kung saan yung papadala? Anong kailangan? What do you think? Anyone? Okay, wala. Okay. So, for the network layer, your segment will now be added with a frame header. Okay, you will be added with a frame header. Sorry. Okay, sorry. A segment. So, this will be a packet header. Okay, sorry, packet header pala. Okay? Okay? So, the packet header, sa packet header, nakalagay doon, if you have the source port and destination port on the transport layer, pagdating sa network layer, ano kaya yung source dito? Source and destination. Ano sa tingin niya? So guys, anyone? So guys, narinig niyo pa ba ako? Nandiyan pa ba kayo? Okay, so baka lang ako... Okay. On the transport layer, you already know the service. So, because that is represented by the source port and the destination port. Pagdating sa network layer, so kailangan mo naman is the source IP and the destination IP. So, yung source IP mo and destination IP is on your packet header. Okay? Nasa packet header mo ang source IP and destination IP. Kasi kailangan mo ng source IP because you are the one requesting. For example, this is 192.168.1.1. Then this one is 192.168.1.2. Okay? Each segment does have a packet header, and the packet header included is the source IP and destination IP. Kasi diba, the transport layer, you know the service. On the network layer, you know your destination. Okay? Your destination also knows the source IP. Okay? So, that is the network layer. So, next we have the data link layer. Pagdating sa data link, we have the segment plus the packet header plus the This is what we call as the frame header. This is frame. This is packet. And this is a segment. Okay? So, kung sa network layer, that is a source IP and destination IP, ano naman kaya sa data link layer? So, what is included on the data link layer? Kung meron ka ng IP,
Port pooling, sir.
ano na?
Ports pooling.
Ports ulit. Actually, this is already defined on the transport layer. So, in destination mo, alam na. So, you are requesting an HTTP, I'll be giving you an HTTP service. Okay? So, since alam na ng destination mo that you are the source, and alam na din ng source that you are the destination, pagdating dito, dadaan siya sa switch. So, on the data link layer, we have the frame header added on it. Okay? So, the frame header, sa frame header ay included din in our source. This is what we call as the physical address. What is a physical address? IP addresses are logical address. Physical address are? Anyone? We have the source MAC address. Okay? Source MAC address and destination MAC address. Pagdating kasi dito, this is a logical address. Kaya lang, pagbaba mo ng data link layer, syempre, the IP addresses would be determined by the device that you are using. Okay? And that refers to the MAC address. And remember that MAC addresses are physical address and are fixed on the network. Okay? So, alam mo yung MAC address? Let's say this is 00001.AA. For example, this is 11.11.11.BB. Okay? So eto siya. Pagdating sa data link layer, so naka-segment siya, nilagay siya ng packet header on the transport layer, nilagay siya ng frame header on the data link layer. Okay? Okay? So, yun yung nagko-comprise entire data transmission. That's how your data looks like over the network. From PDU, naging segment siya into smaller pieces. Nilagyan siya ng source port and destination port. Nilagyan siya ng, on the network layer, nilagyan siya ng source IP and the destination IP. So, on the data link layer, nilagyan siya ng source MAC and destination MAC address. Okay? Para to complete the data transmission, so everything will now be converted to physical, which is on your electronic signal. Okay? Okay, so that's how your data works or travels over the network. Okay? From segment, we have the segment, then the packet, then the segment, then the packet, and frame. Para madali lang tagdaan, that is SPF. Okay? So, segment, packet, frame. Okay? You start with the PDU, then SPF, segment, packet, and frame. Okay? Para at least, if you wanted, if you will be on the networking career, at least you know how to recall of all of those headers. So, let's start na kayo ng SPF. So from the transport network data link, that's segment, packet, and frame. So, going to the physical layer. Okay? So, ganun nagtatransmit yung data nyo over the cable or over the network. Pinapalit muna siya, then meron mga other information added to those information or your protocol data unit para mabuo mo isang network transmission. Okay? So, that is the OSI 7 layer. So, this is very important sa networking talaga because ang dami mga questions that falls under the OSI 7 layer. Okay? Any question here? Wala naman?
Wala na po.
Salamat po, sir.
Wala naman, guys.